Have you ever had a day in your sewing room where everything felt like it went wrong? And then you filmed the entire day of things going wrong and then you uploaded it onto YouTube so everyone else could watch your very wrong day? That is exactly the way I felt about this video that you are getting ready to watch. Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Ugly Naked Guy from Sincerely Gem Patterns. I'm using Oh So Lovely fabrics with this. This is a canvas. It is on pre-order right now. And I love this bag. I love this pattern. I've made it several times, but it seems like in this tutorial, I did a lot of wrong things. The camera messed up a couple times. I messed up a couple times. Just little things, nothing big. It's just one of those days where it's like, okay, I cannot believe the bag turned out as good as it did with everything I did wrong. So anyway, let's talk about the pattern a little bit before we get started. The way this pattern is designed is there's a lot of features with your top stitching and the fabrics right in the front. Now, I'm trying to get better with fussy cutting, but you can see I didn't do great with this. This is a goal I have for next year, is to do better with placement of fabric. You have a zipper pocket here in the front. You have the same unique top stitching features on the back. It opens up really wide. Now I'm using the original version of how to add the zipper. There is a hack with a recessed zipper. I'm thinking about doing another tutorial on that, but you can see it opens really wide. There is a zipper pocket in the back. This is a beautiful pattern. I love the fabric. Everything came together great. Definitely one of my favorite bags, despite all the mistakes I made on it. So let's go ahead and get started. I apologize in advance for the errors I made and for the problems I had. Still turned out great. You won't have any problems following the tutorial. I just, was frustrated with some of my errors on it. So let's go ahead and get started sewing this bag. I'll have a link for the pattern and the fabrics in my description below. So this is the second time I've filled this section. The first time I did it, I evidently didn't turn the camera on. It's okay, but some of my pieces are already clipped together. Nothing's sewn, but everything's clipped because I just went through it all. So we are going to go through everything again, but I'm not going to unclip everything. So if it's clipped, that's why. Okay, let's go over our hardware first. We're going to have 3 zipper pulls, 2 for pockets and 1 for the main zipper. The main zipper already has its zipper on it. We're going to have 2 swivel hooks for the strap, and also for the strap an adjustable bar. The other hard we'll need is our D-rings, and I have those already clipped on to my D-ring connectors. My D-ring connectors are just a piece of canvas interfaced with the medium weight interfacing. I drew a line down the center and I folded both of those long raw edges to the middle. I do not fold again. And then that gives me the 1 inch for my D-ring to fit on perfectly. I do have 2 of these. One of the first things I'll do is I'll sew down both of the long sides of my D-rings. So I'll set those here at my sewing machine because that will be one of the, like I said, first things I do. The zippers for my pocket pieces for an exterior and interior, I do not have a zipper tab on them, and I will not put the pull on until I'm ready to attach these. So let's set these aside. They'll come later in the pattern. I did go ahead and add the zipper pull to the exterior zipper because this one does have a zipper tab. Let's talk about how we fold this zipper tab. I did interface this, but honestly, I wouldn't if I had to do it again because it's really, really thick. So the pattern tells us we're going to fold in the long sides first. So I have those folded in. It tells you how far to fold them in. Then it tells you to fold down the short sides. Again, it tells you how far to fold them down. After you get to this step, then you simply fold this piece in half, wrong sides together, so that all your raw edges are encased and you have just like a little pocket to slip the end of your zipper onto. This will be one of the other first things I sew. We're going to do like a big batch of sewing right in the beginning. So these are all the steps that I'll do right off the bat to get things started. So I'm just going to clip these edges, and whenever I sew this zipper tab on, I'm going to sew around all 4 edges just 1/8 of an inch away. I'm doing my other end of the zipper a little bit differently than the pattern says. I went ahead and folded mine down 90 degrees. I'll just base these two sides into place on the sewing machine, but you can follow the pattern if you would rather do it that way. This way is just easier for me, so I went ahead and did that. So I just clipped those down for right now. I'm going to set this with the other stuff because I'll sew it first too. And here's the stripe, just your basic stripe. You can make your stripe however you want, webbing, whatever. It is just a regular piece of canvas cut 4 inches. I fold it in half first and then fold both of the long raw edges to the middle. Then I fold it again. No big deal there. I will top stitch down both long edges about 1/8 of an inch away. First step 2, just to get that out of the way. Now let's wait on these pieces because I'm going to explain all them. Let's go to the lining piece first. You will have 2 lining pieces. Everything's a cotton canvas I'm using. So my lining pieces, I just put 1 layer of a medium weight interfacing. I use Royal Pixie Light, but you can use whatever you prefer. I also have 2 pocket pieces for the lining. These are just a canvas piece without any interfacing on them. I'm going to set this aside. That will not be one of the first things we're working on. I also have 2 pocket pieces for the exterior, not interfaced as well, just the canvas. I'm going to put those aside. Then we have a base piece, the bottom piece for the exterior, the bottom piece for the lining. For the lining, I just have 1 layer of medium weight interfacing. For the exterior bottom base piece, I have a layer of the medium weight interfacing, but then I have 2 layers of firm interfacing. For firm interfacing, I choose to use the Royal Pixie Heavy. You can use a Decaville Light, whatever you prefer, but that's what I have on mine. Set these 2 pieces aside as well. Now for the rest of the pieces that we are going to be starting to sew with. These will all be the first things we sew with, so let's go through them one at a time. This is my front top. This is the first thing you'll see when you look at the bag, the top front of the bag, and you can see that these 2 pieces are mirrored. So you'll cut these pieces out, one with the words on the pattern piece facing right sides up. The other will be cut out with the words on the pattern piece right sides down. This is a cotton canvas, and I do have 2 layers of a medium weight interfacing on the back. I choose to use Royal Pixie Light on these, but there is 2 layers. This bag is considered a slouchy hobo bag, but these 2 layers give it that extra bit of strength so that it does have a slight bit of structure and just looks great in the end. So definitely don't skip that. Put it on there. These 2 pieces, the front top, will be one of the first things I sew. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm going to add a clip right here, and then I will sew with the seam allowance given along this side here. With all of these, you're going to have to back stitch, and when you start and stop, a definite. You have to do that or they'll unravel. And also you'll just use the seam allowance given the pattern, so I won't keep repeating that to bore you. You'll just know that as a standard. These 2 pieces are going to be my front bottom. This is the way to look after I've sewn it. So what I'll do is I'll just put these 2 pieces together, matching up this side, matching up all sides really, they are all going to fit, but you're going to sew along this side. Again, this is the cotton canvas with 2 layers of medium weight interfacing. Now we're going to talk about our sides. We have 2 sides to our bag, of course, so we won't go through one of them. I'll just put over here, but the other one we'll go ahead and talk about it. I am cutting in this clip because I've later realized I made a mistake. So in the video, and I'm editing out all the parts where I said this, but you'll still see it, you know, me holding it up or sewing it. I said to sew the side panels like this. That is incorrect. We do not sew them like that. We sew them like this. So this is the way we sew them together. And on the top, these longer sides will be what matches. So you're going to put them together just like right sides together like that, matching them up. and sewing along this edge with the seam allowance given the pattern. You can see obviously where I sewed and had a seam rip. It happens, I make mistakes. I'm fixing it now, but you will see, like in other clips, maybe me holding up the pieces or sewing the other pieces the wrong way. But just remember, you are sewing this edge. Refer to the pattern. Always use the pattern first before me. The pattern is tested. My videos are just edited by me, so many things can get by me. This one I did catch, of course, but definitely follow along with your pattern. So any other mistakes that I may make in this video, you don't have to make them also. Sorry about that, guys. Going to continue on sewing and getting everything taken care of. Flip that in place, set it over here, and the last thing we'll talk about is the back. We will have two pieces that will create the back of the bag, mirrored once again. So this is the way to look at the end. So I've simply placed those right sides together just like the others, and we will sew against this edge. So I know it's a lot of steps to prep all at once, but this is just the easier way for me. I love to get, like if I have a bunch of pieces, to combine them and then I'm down to a lot less pieces. It just helps my anxiety, I guess. So these are all the steps we're going to do first. The first things we're going to get started with. So I've got the pieces sewn, but I was getting ready to put on the D-rings and I realized that I had silver D-rings out. When I initially was getting everything pulled out, I thought I was going to use silver pulls, and at the last minute I decided to use the black ones. So I didn't sew these on. I wanted to switch them up real quick, so I will be doing that. And I'm also going to get a couple other things ready to do our next steps with sewing. So for the D-rings, I will base the bottom and then I will just top stitch there at the top so they don't flop down. For the strap, I'll go ahead and put my zipper aside. I'm not doing anything else with that exterior zipper for a while. For the strap, I am just going to thread or feed, however you want to call it, that end through the adjustable bar. Then I just fold down the raw edge and put a clip right there, and I'm just going to sew. I usually end up sewing 2 stitches to secure that, but you can do whatever you want. I'll go ahead and take the other end, making sure I don't get everything all twisted, and slide on one swivel hook. Okay, I'm trying to get things twisted. My strap is twisting. So then I just take the other end, and sometimes it's a little tight of a fit, which is fine. You want it tight so it doesn't slide around. Feed one through end one side, go ahead and take it through the other side. Add your other swivel hook, and then I just fold that raw edge in, tuck the swivel hook right in that crease. Put a clip there. Okay, and then I'll sew those two pieces that I have clipped on my strap. Let's set this aside. So now we have all these pieces that I sewed together. What you're going to do is you're going to open each one up and butterfly that seam and then sew on each side of the seam. So you'll top stitch on each side of the seam and sewing down both sides. I'll just sew 1/8 of an inch down both sides of this whole stack. So it's a lot of sewing, but then we'll get it all done and it'll look beautiful. So now we're going to work on the front of the bag. I'm going to make that front zipper pocket. This is the way it's going to look at the end. So what I'm going to do, and you notice I do not have my zipper pull on yet. I'll put it on at the end. What I'll do is I'll flip the zipper right sides down onto the front bottom piece. I'm going to put a few clips on here just to hold it into place. And then let's go ahead and take out one of our front lining pocket pieces and go ahead and add it to. We'll take this piece and we'll place it right sides together with the exterior and just make a traditional zipper sandwich and kind of sew it together all at once to save ourselves a little bit of time. Okay, so now that I have that clipped into place, I'm going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern all along that top clipped edge. Now that I have that sewn together, I am simply going to flip the two fabrics so they're wrong sides together, push that down, smooth that seam allowance. The seam allowance will be going down, our zipper will be going up. I'm just going to finger press that all into place. And now I'm going to top stitch. So where I will top stitch is right here on the bottom front fabric, and that will be me sewing through my front, bottom, my zipper tape, and the seam allowance for the lining. If you need to clip these in place, you can, but what I will do is I'm just going to hold that tight, push it down, then put my foot down and continue to hold and pull, not like really hard, but just putting some pressure on it, and go ahead and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. Here's how it looks from the front. Here's how it looks from the lining. Now what we're going to do is we need to attach this top piece. So go ahead and put it the way you know it'll be orientated in the end, and then flip it down. It's going to be sewn right sides together. It'll be the bottom of the front top piece and the top of the zipper. You want to make sure that these seams are lining up. Mine are, so I'm safe to go ahead and clip. You can also check, make sure your sides match up as well. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and flip this over. So I'm looking at my lining piece. I'll take out the other lining piece, place it right sides together, making sure my print is orientated correctly. And it will go that same place, making a traditional zipper sandwich, the top of the zipper. And now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and sew along this clipped edge with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Try your best to make sure you're doing the same seam allowance you done the bottom, so there's even amounts of zipper tape showing. now that I have that, I will flip up both the exterior front and the lining top piece. Okay, let's say that again. So now I'm going to take the exterior top and the lining top piece, flip it up. We want to make sure we have that flipped up so when we top stitch, we're not top stitching this close so we can't get into the zipper. If you need to take this over to the iron, you can. Just be careful that you wouldn't mess up your zipper teeth. You would not want to melt them. I've had that happen before. Okay, now I'm going to top stitch again 1/8 of an inch away, just like I did on the bottom. Push our lining down. And let's look at that amazing front. This is what my front is going to look like. It is great. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, now I need to add my zipper pull onto this piece. Okay, I have my zipper pull on. I'm going to leave it there in the middle. When I turn this over, I can see that I do have overhang. That's expected. I'll put a few clips here. Actually, I want to put them this way. I'm going to trim that, but before I do, I'm going to go ahead and close up that bottom. I'm not too worried about closing up the sides because when I attach the sides, it'll close them up naturally, but I do need to go ahead and close up that bottom. I'm just going to sew across using the seam allowance given in the pattern. I'm just going to trim up my zippers. If you want, you could go ahead and baste down the sides. I'm not worried about it because my next step will be going on to adding the sides. Okay, so I went ahead and trimmed off that bottom of the zipper pocket, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out that front that I've completed and my 2 side pieces. If you remember, I had sewn these wrong. Obviously, I would have figured it out at this point if I hadn't figured it out earlier because they wouldn't match up. But what I'll do is I'll take this front exterior and this side piece and I'll lay them right sides together. They should, if you sewed everything together, match up perfectly. So if you didn't, go and check. Okay, I'm just going to clip along that edge. We're just going to sew this with the seam allowance given the pattern. That should catch that zipper pocket lining as well. Make sure it kind of lays flat. Mine's kind of getting a little bunched up there. Okay, so just keep clipping that, and then I'll clip the other side as well. And of course, you're going to back stitch when you start and stop, and sew it with the seam allowance given the pattern. The seam allowance in this one's a little bit bigger than I'm used to, and so I keep forgetting and having to remind myself to get that complete seam allowance in, because if I don't, then my bottom, when I put on that base, it will not fit. So I have to really be careful with this one, and hopefully I won't mess it up and have problems getting that bottom piece to fit. Here is my front. I have both of the side pieces clipped. Let's go ahead and sew it. Make sure you get that proper seam allowance. So now that I have that sewn on, I'm going to open this up, and then I want my seam allowance to stay the way it's laying. See how it's laying flat right here? I'm going to open it up and just push this down. I do not want to sew on the front. I'm going to sew on this side panel, and I want the seam allowance directly underneath that. If you want to take this over to the ironing board, you can. I am just going to finger press it, and the reason why I'm not taking on the ironing board is I do not want to risk my zipper. It's the only reason. Not being lazy on this one, I promise. So I am just going to finger press and sew 1/8 of an inch away, keeping that seam allowance under the side panel. Okay, so I have the front and the sides all sewn together. It is looking amazing. So much better than I thought. Oh my gosh. Now it's time to add the D-ring connectors to the bag. We are going to put them on the side and we're going to center them. The D-ring itself will be facing down, and you can, since you have this seam right here in the middle, it's pretty easy to center it directly on that seam. I like to leave a little bit of overhang. The pattern does give you an exact amount of overhang to leave, and you're just going to base this in place. So now it is time to add the back to this bag. We're going to do it the same way we've been doing it. We're going to take it and place it right sides together with one of the sides, matching up everything. I'm going to go ahead and bring it over to the other side, matching it up as well. At this point you should have a tube, so you know we're going to have to sew very carefully when we're top stitching this. It's always fun to sew a tube on a flatbed machine. Okay, so I'm going to sew those two clipped edges with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Don't forget it is a larger seam allowance than usual. And then we are going to open it up and top stitch it. Now, if it makes you nervous to sew a tube, you could always sew one side of the back first and then top stitch that and then do the other one separately. I'm not too stressed about it. I'm just going to go slow and be okay. It's not my favorite, but I'm not seriously like, oh no, this is horrible. But anyway, here is your back piece right here. You're going to have your seam allowances going to your side. So you're actually going to sew on your side panels with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So it's just going to be on the side panel you're sewing. You're not sewing on your back panel, and the seam allowance we pushed over that way, so you'll be sewing through your side panel and that seam. Whenever I sew a tube, I always just go extremely slow. I keep one hand inside, one hand on the outside to make sure that I don't get anything like caught under the needle that's not supposed to be caught under the needle. And this is the way that I get the best results, but I do not go fast. This is a practice in patience. First side is done. Let's go ahead and do the second side that very same way. Okay, so now we have on the exterior panel sewn together. It's time to add that base piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my base piece out, and I will use the pattern piece itself to make my quarter marks on it. And then what I'll do is, this pattern is kind of designed in a way that you already have your quarter marks on your bag itself. So what I'll do while I'm off camera is I'll make the quarter marks, and then I'll go ahead and clip those quarter marks and clip everything around. I won't sew anything, but I'll just clip it all around, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about how we'll sew that and get it all put together. So I went ahead and clipped that exterior base to the exterior bag. I made sure I had it orientated correctly, and so like the front of the bag has the front of the base panel, and you can see I just clipped them right sides together. all along the raw edge, all the way around. I marked up the center marks and quarter marks first, and then just eased the rest of it in. Now, if you're sewing this with the proper seam allowance and you cut everything out properly, you're going to be pretty much right up against those 2 layers of Decaville Light, those 2 extra layers of stabilizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this under my foot, and I have a skinny foot on so I can get kind of close. And I am going to pretty much sew right up against it, but not going through it. I'm checking that seam allowance still to make sure that it is the accurate seam allowance so everything fits out perfectly, and it should be fine. I know a lot of people get nervous sewing curves, but really you're just sewing straight. You're just kind of shifting the bag when you get near the curve. When I get to these edges, you'll see me kind of flip the bag up and rotate it, and that'll be the only part that really changes any of the way it looks. It's basically just following the seam allowance and stitching slowly. So let's go ahead and get the base on, and we'll be done with our exterior. So here's where that shifting's happening. So I'm coming up against this curve. I've just been sewing along a straight edge so far. So you'll see me kind of pulling and rotating and just going 1 stitch at a time, rotating as it needs to. I want to make sure it's always kind of a straight line right where my foot is. Okay, I have the base sewn onto the exterior. Now I will trim down those seam allowances by quite a bit. I'll do that off camera, but there's just no need to leave the seam allowance that big. It would just create some extra bulk in the bottom of the bag and not let the lining lay properly. So I do suggest you trim that seam allowance. But we'll go ahead and go on with the rest of the video, and it's time to start working on the lining. Pull out one of your main lining pieces and one of your interior zipper pocket lining pieces. This should be the only few pieces we have left at this point. The pattern tells us how far to place this lining pocket piece. You lay it right sides together with the lining. You center it on both sides, so both sides will be evenly spaced. Then the pattern tells us how far down we draw our box, the measurements of the box, and how far in the box is going to be from the sides of the lining. Just as a side note, most of the time, and this isn't like you always need to do it because there could be other reasons why it'll be differently, but typically you're going to place this pocket lining piece 1 inch down. You're going to draw your box 1 inch down. You're going to draw the sides of your box 1 inch in on each side. It's kind of a basic formula. Your box, if you're using a number 5 zipper, typically is about 1/2 inch wide. It's usually centered on the panel. So even if you don't feel like, like if you get confused, that's pretty standard format. Lots of times I don't even read the pattern when it comes to pockets. If I'm doing a tutorial, I do. But if I'm doing my own, I'm like, it'll be okay. We're just making a zipper pocket, but that is how you do this one. So let's go ahead and sew directly on the line that we drew to get this zipper pocket started. Have that box sewn. I'm going to take this, fold that in half, get a small cut started in the middle of the box that I just sewed. I'm going to cut through all the layers. I'm going to continue cutting down the middle of this line until I get about 1/2 inch from the end, and then I will do angled cuts to get as close as I can to those stitches without going through them. Repeat that on repeat that on the other side. And then I'm going to push this lining through. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the iron and get it all pressed flat. But what I typically like to do is I like to press the seams open and then press this down and then press it in. I just really like to get a really good box here, because if I have that box really nice and flat, it makes sewing in the zipper so much easier. So let me take this over to the ironing board, press it out, and then we'll come back over and install the zipper. So I have my zipper box ironed flat, and I have my zipper with the pull on it. Now what I'm going to do is just take this over the machine and put the zipper underneath the box. I'm not going to use any tape, pins, or anything like that. My goal is to, as I'm sewing, just keep the teeth right in the middle of the box, adjusting as I go. If you want to use tape, pins, whatever, definitely do that, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. And I will start sewing 1/8 of an inch away from this box, the ironed edge that's folded. And I'll start kind of in the middle of the box. I won't start on the edge or anything, because that way whenever I turn the corner to finish it, it gives me time to match back up where I started. So just getting everything orientated the way I like it, making sure the pull's closing in the way I want, and I'm going to stitch all around this box. Okay, so I got the zipper attached to the lining. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this piece over, and I'm going to grab out that other lining piece. I'm going to take it, flip it right sides together with the one we just attached. I'm going to add a few clips to hold this in place, and I'm going to sew from the bottom, go up to the side, over, back down this other side, but I'll leave this bottom portion completely open for us to turn the bag through. So we're going to start sewing at the bottom of one side and then go all the way around to the bottom of the other side, but not closing at the bottom. So I have the zipper pocket sewn, leaving the bottom opened. You can go ahead and open up your zipper pocket a little bit if you want, just so you don't forget it later. You are going to pull out that other lining piece, place it right sides together with the other one, add a few clips, and let's go ahead and sew down both of the sides of this lining piece, attaching both of them with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now that we have the sides sewn, it's time to pull out that remaining piece we have left, our base. The base of the lining is going to be attached the exact same way as the base for the exterior. So I'm not going to show all that on camera just to save your time, but you will find your quarter mark, you'll find your center marks on all four sides. So quarter, 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 quarter. You will do the same thing on your lining pieces. Attach the base right sides together, clip it all around, sew it with the seam allowance given pattern, and then trim down your seams, and then our lining and our exteriors will be complete and we'll be ready to put everything together. Okay, it's time to put this bag together and finish everything. I'm changing my camera angle, so I hope that helps you to be able to see clearly what I'm doing. If not, I apologize. I'll go back to my other one in my next video. I just wanted to be able for you guys to see the top of this bag. So what you should have right now at this point is you should have your exterior wrong sides out. You should have your lining right sides out. Go ahead and open up your zipper pocket. It should have an opening at the bottom. And you should have your zipper tape. Now the pattern gives us a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to show you the way I do it. I'll be honest, for me this is the most nerve-wracking part of this pattern. Not because it's hard, but because I've put in so much work and I'm always worried that I'll get the zipper wrong, like it'll be uneven or I'll have a wavy zipper and it just won't look good. So this is the most stressful part for me. As you know, I went ahead and folded down the edges and sewed these edges down. So this is how my zipper looks. The pattern has hers a little differently, but this is the way I feel the best with mine. I also went ahead and used the measurements the pattern gave me to mark 4 spots on my bag. The way the pattern tells you to do that is you start with the side seams. You have 4 places where your side seam meets the front and the back of the exterior. So here is the back. Here is that seam where the side meets the back. I'm going to measure over, and it depends on if you're sewing the small or the large. My bag is the small. So I'm going to go over that measurement the pattern says and make a mark. I'm not going on the back. I'm measuring and making my mark on the side seam. I will do that for all 4 of those seams. Then I'm going to take my zipper, and this is my back, so let me flip it around so that I'm looking at the front, because that's the way I want the bag to be, like the zipper to be orientated, closing this way. So I'm going to orientate it this way. I'm going to take this folded edge and I'm going to place it right there at that first mark that I made. Clip that in place and go ahead and clip around all the way until I get to that last mark that I made on this front side. I'm going to go ahead and open my zipper up and clip all along that edge, matching up the 2 raw edges. Those marks that I made will be my starting and stopping points. There is also a hack that was made, and I'm pretty sure that the designer even did a video of how to do this as a recessed zipper. Now, a lot of people prefer that option of sewing this, the recessed zipper part. I have not sewn the recessed zipper, I'll be honest with you. I just haven't done it yet. I should try it for sure, but I'm not the best at recessed zippers. I'm going to make a mark on this other side because my chalk is kind of not hard to see where the spot is a little bit light there, so I'm just going to make another mark. But I would like to try that. I just haven't done it yet. Okay, so that's the front. That's how the front will look clipped. I'm going to turn this around and we're doing it the same way. Now we are putting this right sides together. The zipper is right sides together with the fabric. So make sure I did not twist my zipper at all. And go ahead and clip that folded edge first. Lining up the raw edges and continue on. We're going to base this in place first. I always, especially with a zipper like this, would never even begin to consider skipping this basting step. I guess if you are a very experienced sewist you could, but it ain't going to be me. So I'm going to base this in place and then we will come back and add the lining. Okay, so I have that zipper basted on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lining and I'm going to put it inside my exterior. I want the zipper pocket against the back of the bag. So I'm just laying it in there. I'm going to push the zipper tape down in there. If I did not push the zipper tape in there and sewed it with it out, you would not be able to open and close your bag. So you've got to make sure you put that in there. I know a lot of people are like, well, that's common sense. I understand, but lots of us get, like when we're sewing, sometimes we forget like common sense things. It just happens, not because we're not smart, we're just focused on so much. When I come to my D-ring connectors, I'm going to match up these side seams first. I'm going to push that D-ring down. Make sure the D-ring itself is going down as far as it can, because I do not want to risk going over that and hitting that with the needle. I'm going to sew this and I'm going to push those seams open when I come to them so that I have that even spread there. But you can see I'm matching up those side seams. Coming over on this side, do the same thing. Match up those side seams first, and then I'll match up my center marks, and then I'll just continue to clip around. Okay, I'm just clipping around, matching up all the raw edges on both the exterior and the lining. You can see it's fitting perfectly. Sincerely, Jen does an amazing job of testing these patterns out. She makes sure that everything is like fitting perfectly, matching up correctly. That's why her patterns are some of my favorites. They're just amazing patterns. So you can see no problems at all getting this to fit. When I'm sewing this, I'm going to use the seam allowance given the pattern, but I'm going to make 100% sure that I get as close as I can to the zipper teeth. That for me is the main thing that helps me to not get a wavy zipper, is whenever I cut in as close as I can to those zipper teeth so that there's less like tape for them to be wavy on. So I'm going to really try to get as close as I can with my foot. I do have a skinny foot, but still sometimes it's hard for me to get as close as I really want to, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to sew all around the top of this bag, and so watching my seam allowance, getting as close as I can to the teeth, making sure that my 2 D-rings are down, spreading these seams open. So a couple things to just go slow on. We do have a little slopey curve there, so we're also going to be careful of doing that as well. So let's get started sewing this all together. Okay, I'm finished sewing the lining and the exterior with the zipper sandwiched in between together. I'm not going to trim down my seam allowances, but I did just trim a little bit off the D-rings that were sticking up because I had quite a bit sticking up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this bag right sides out through the zipper pocket, and we only have a few steps left. We have to, it's the wrong pocket. We have to top stitch all around the top, and then we have to close up this pocket, and then we're done. I am extremely nervous but excited to see how this looks. Let's cross our fingers and hope I did a good job. So unfortunately, I had a few technical difficulties while filming this video. I thought it was just me, but it was actually a couple issues with the camera. I think I've got them all resolved now. But unfortunately, it did cut off without me realizing. And you missed me top stitching all around the top and closing up the pocket in the interior of the bag, the birthing pocket, the pocket where we turned the bag through. So I'm very sorry about that, guys. I hope you understand that I'm not going to take out the top stitching and redo it just to show you. Top stitching's basically just going around the entire perimeter of the bag. No big deal. Go slow. You do have some bulky parts around these seams right here with the D-rings and everything, so go slow at that part. Hand crank if necessary. Other than that, even though this video has so many problems in it, the bag still turned out great. Some things I need to do differently is I need to work on like my fussy cutting and things, because you can see this mushroom here, it's kind of aggravating, and where it's a front center part, this I need to get better with stuff like that. I'm still struggling with like panels and measurements and things and fussy cutting for sure. So that's definitely something I want to work on for the new year. Other than that, the front, the back, the bag is gorgeous. Great structure, great shape. I love it. The print is amazing, of course. So this is the Ugly Naked Guy Hobo bag from Sincerely Jen Patterns. The fabric is from Oh So Lovely. This bag is an amazing bag. I love it so much. I do want to try the recessed zipper next time. Maybe I'll do another video on that and I won't have camera problems on it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for bearing with this video, for watching me sew up another tutorial. I hope you guys try out this pattern if you haven't already. I would love to see it. Sincerely Jen has a Facebook group. Oh So Lovely has a Facebook group too. You can see different examples of things they make in both of those. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day sewing. I hope you're creating something beautiful in your sewing room today. And thank you again for watching another tutorial of mine.